Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I am so honored today to have Jennifer DiDio on the show. She's out of Westminster, Maryland, and she recently launched this marketing campaign that is going to knock your socks off. It is such a wonderful story. She's offering such a wonderful gift to her clients, and we walk through her whole journey in starting her photography business and building her confidence, building her craft, and learning the business parts of it and charging what she's worth. And we bring all of this together. It kind of comes full circle in this wonderful marketing campaign she put together called Unveil Your Cinderella. There are so many great lessons to be learned in this video. You're going to want to rewatch this one, so don't miss it. I'm honored to introduce Jennifer DiDio. Jennifer, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me, Nate.
You bet. All right, so before we get into the meat and potatoes, let's take a second and just tell me how you got into portrait photography and finding a niche that worked.
Okay. I think my journey is probably at the start anyway, reflective of a lot of people. People were loving on social media what I was doing with my own family and friends and events we were at, and said, "Oh gosh, you should have a business. You should have a business." And I was so green and naive, I believed them. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to start a business because I love photography. And to the disdain of everyone out there with established businesses like myself now, I'll readily admit, because I realize now what it means to run a business. And I was warned by a lot of people actually who were in the industry at the time. And so I said, okay, well, I'll base my pricing on them, like what they're doing. And people who I saw had great marketing, doing well. They're all out of business now. Oh, yikes. So I realized, and from a lot of business training that I really began to kind of sink my teeth into, I'll learn photography on my own because I love that, but I had to discipline myself to begin to train as a business. And people like Bambi Cantrell through things like Creative Live have been great at, and you know, there's been many other Sue Bryce who say, look, this is the business of photography and this is how you make it float.
Right.
So we kind of evolved, started with this little dream. I had a doctor's office.
This is just fantastic. So back up a second. How long ago was when you decided to first start as a business? How long have you been doing it?
4.5 years ago, I took in a handful of portraits, maternity portraits I had done just for a friend to my OBGYN's office. On a visit, I took my laptop in and I said, hey, I thought you might like to see a more beautiful side of pregnancy than you see every day. You know, women talking about their hemorrhoids and all, you know, so I thought, I'm going to show you something beautiful about pregnancy that maybe sometimes you're not seeing.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there, Dr. Ballas is sitting there, and he's looking at it, and he said, wow, I love these. And he keeps remarking about them. Well, meanwhile, the nurse who had been in earlier, who had been taking care of me, you know, preparing me, said, you know, what do you have the laptop for? And I told her, I said, I just want to show these to Dr. Ballas. And if he wanted, I was going to give him a print if he wanted to hang one up, because I think they're, you know, beautiful. She's like, oh, he won't want to do that. People are always trying to give him stuff to hang up in here, and he won't. I said, oh, it doesn't matter. Right. I just wanted to show him. I thought he would appreciate it. So he's sitting, and he asked me to open it back up and show it to him again later in the visit. And I said, sure, you can look at it. He goes, Jennifer, I can't get over them. I love them. He said, and I said, well, if you really do, you can have one if you want. If you want, I'll print it up. You can hang it up here. He said, absolutely, I want one. And then he keeps talking about it. I said, would you want more than one? Absolutely. And put out your business card.
Wow.
And I said, well, I don't have a business. What are you talking about? And he's like, well, why not? He's like, Jennifer, people hit me up all the time about, hey, will you put this up? Will you? He's like, I'm not a country craft store. I don't want their... I probably shouldn't say this.
No, you should. I love it.
But you know, like, hey, I'm not your place where you're going to sell quilts and whatever.
Right.
It's a physician's office. He said, but so anyway, he said, put out your business card, and so I got in the car that day, and I'm like, what the heck? I guess I called my husband, and he's like, it's time. I had 3 boys in a 1.5 years because I had twins, and I had left resigned from my previous teaching career, teaching high school. And I was like, all right, let's make a go of this. So green and naive, but over the last, 4.5 years, have kind of defined a niche in our area that says we specialize in excellent client care and unique creations for people. And for most people, they're going to look and say, no way. I'm not spending that kind of money for that. But what we kind of say is if 95% of people say you're too expensive, or even 99%, that 1 to 5% who values what you do, they can float your business. And if the 95%, if you were cheap enough for them, they would have destroyed my business.
Right.
Because I couldn't have kept up.
Yep.
So.
Oh, good for you. So this is such a good story. I love how animated you are about it too. This is great. So you had you gone back to work as a teacher? So you'd already been done teaching and you're like, the kids are getting older. Instead of going back to teaching, I'm just going to go full-time photography.
Yeah. It was a real debate on my part about whether I would go back to the classroom because I loved it. I taught psych, like the absolute best class to teach in high school. Mm-hmm. My program, it had grown so much when I was there. It's all I was teaching by the time I left. And so I said, it was kind of a no-brainer. I had everything. I could just go back. It was a welcome invitation anytime I wanted to come back. Wow. And so I was like, do I do this or do I take this risk and try this thing and, this running a business? And I decided to go with the risky thing, thinking, and this is again where I was naive. I'll shape the schedule around. It'll be really easy to, I'll still be well, anybody who runs a small business knows you trade a 40 to 50 hour week for 24/7. And, right. We're our worst bosses because we're the slave drivers, right? But, which is why I was
telling my wife the other day, I almost wish I still had a boss that I could blame working late on. Like when I used to have a boss on a Friday night, of course, we've got something big planned. And my boss would be like, well, we've got to get this done before you go home. And they go call homes. I'm sorry, we're going to be stuck at work again late. And she'd be bummed out, but not mad at me.
Yeah.
Now when that happens, the buck stops here and I've got nobody to blame.
You got to create a fake boss. You got to be like, Sticky Albums now has a new CEO. He's going to take a lot of load off me. Instead, he's just a dirty, rotten SOB who's making you work like a dog, right?
Totally. But it's worth it. I mean, I'm not complaining. The trade-offs. I wouldn't have, once you have a taste of running your own show, it's hard to go back.
Well, yes, I go back to all the time. Basically, what my goal was when I started this, we grew up poor, and we moved around literally every year to 1 to 2 years. So really young parents. We never had family portraits. So I came at this with a kind of really fresh perspective about how I'm going to do it, basically. And I knew what people had seen that they were liking in my work there was an authenticity to it that they said they weren't seeing a lot of times other places. So I started as this it was very lifestyle but beautiful. And then what happened is as I progressed, and now this whole Unveil Your Cinderella campaign, or basically we have our own website for it now. This whole big marketing push for that is this very stylized, very posed, very meticulous to just make extraordinary portraits of women that they're proud of, that they want to say, I want my child to have this. I want my child, that when I'm no longer here, to have this beautiful portrait of me. Which, if you go back a couple of generations ago, there was often in most homes, there was a beautiful portrait of the woman of the house. Somehow that disappeared. So I'm like, we're bringing it back. Let's bring it back and get something you're proud of.
That is so okay. We're gonna pull apart this whole campaign. It's so inspiring. I'm just so proud of what you've created, and I'm excited to share it with everybody here on the call. I want to pull apart one more detail, one more milestone for you in growing your business.
Sure. Before
we get there, so. You talked a little bit earlier about pricing, where you started your pricing at you looked around, right? You've nothing to real frame of reference, and you just listed prices.
Yeah. My frame of reference was people who I thought were doing well. Right. And I remember someone saying in training, you photographers are happy to follow one another to the poorhouse.
Right.
And so I thought $550 for a CD of digital images was good.
Right.
And I realized it wasn't.
Yep. So what was that moment? So you're in it for a year or two, and you realized, was it a gradual shift where you slowly got the courage and confidence to raise your rates, or did it happen quickly?
It wasn't too gradual. And I look back at it now. I mean, I guess it's all relative, right? How gradual your shifts are. But what I realized is when I was at a certain price point where if my digital collection was $550, and I had I forget her name's now, Falerni. I'm remembering it wrong, but her wall guides.
Okay.
I'll have to try to remember her name. Anyway,
No worries.
I had these beautiful wall guides where you create these wall presentations for people that I was putting together all this, putting together for my clients. So I was showing them all these amazing things they could do, but they couldn't afford it. So then they were like, okay, we're like $550 is it. That's what we can afford. And that was like sale after sale of this heartbreak of people sitting at the table. Like, I would love to do that on my walls, but I can't. And I capped my reprint rights at 11 by 14. So they would do like small collections or whatever. And what I just realized is I want again, through business training, I was learning, people said, your big pieces on the walls will sell your business because they'll go into each other's homes and they'll say, wow, who did that? Because the photographer who maybe is not as skilled, and not to say there are some who are cheap who have amazing skills.
Right, exactly.
But there are many who are really struggling with technical, and as soon as you blow it up bigger than an 8 by 10, you really see that. So they can't produce that 24 by 36, 32 by 48 on a piece for their walls.
Good point, yep.
So when you show that, and then clients want to buy that, then their friends see it, and then they want it. So... What
did you have the fear? Was it ever like, oh, I'm not worth that much? Or was it just?
Oh, definitely. And when I started, I'm like, we all do, right? We grow so much and I shudder but that was my price point. And I feel like I was worth that then.
You just have to claim it, right? And then.
Yeah. And I know I gave them a great experience and they have a beautiful collection. But I feel like today I'm finally to the point now where I look back at some of my stuff from like last year and I'm like, I do like it still. Not all of it by any stretch, and I'm always working to make everything
to raise the bar.
However, I'm like, okay, that's a year old and I still like it. Yes, like I'm starting to feel like I'm getting there.
Good for you. Because we're our own worst critics too. That's
absolutely. Because my husband will keep saying, "What are you talking about?" But it's something I remember. I think Sue Bryce had said. She said, I'm working to please my clients and myself. And so I would have in the back of my brain every another pro is going to hate this because of whatever this flaw or this fall. And I did have to kind of let that go after a while and say, I'm going to continually be on a journey to create and get better.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to stop that. I want to be like 95 in the old age home, still taking classes.
My favorite Sue Bryce quote is, "I'm here to create, not to compete." And it's so easy to get down this trap and distraction of what is other people doing. It's like, no, put the blinders on and just do my art, do what makes me passionate, and that puts bread on the table, and stay focused. I had a client who said she. When we were doing her senior, and we did some really phenomenal stuff with strobes outdoors with her senior daughter, pole vaulting. Yeah.
We did some beautiful stuff for her in a gown out in the studio grounds. And at one point I said, hey, we just had put a swing out back off one of the trees. And I said, you want to get on the swing? And both mom and client looked at me a little like, I was like, what? And I thought, this is strange. What's this about? Yeah. Well, I wasn't following all the other senior photographers in our area. I didn't know every senior girl sits on a swing. And she said, she said, when we were picking our senior photographer, we would be like, there she is on the swing. There she is leaning on the fence. And she said, we didn't see that in your work at all. And then when you asked us to get on a swing, which we literally had hung a week earlier, we were like, she said, but you know what? We just trusted you. And so she sat on the swing. And I said, what's interesting, I said, does it look like what you were expecting? She's like, no, because I brought some foreground in and did a little bit of cinematic feel to it.
Yeah.
But I said, I will never ask another senior girl to get on a swing again. No way. So.
That's so cool. What a great story of just being willing to take those shots, right? Like I was just talking with my COO here. We were doing a webinar yesterday talking about like Wayne Gretzky and Michael Jordan both are famous for a lot of reasons, right? But in each of their respective sports, while they have like the record for all the great points, they also hold records like Babe Ruth too. Like they also hold the records for the most strikeouts, for the most misses, for the most shots on goal. It's like being willing to just keep putting yourself out there and not letting what other people are doing or what we think we should be doing getting in the way. Like just get out there and do your thing. Oh, awesome.
It's really your client. And I feel like it's the clients who are going to tell me what I need to be doing or not be doing. And so my ear is always to them. And we make a huge deal to them about, I'll turn down a job before I will let it in to the booking schedule and have it wreck their experience in any way.
Right.
So we said, listen, I heard all the complaints they brought from their prior experiences with sometimes high end, mostly not, but sometimes, all different just kind of experiences. And I said, I want to address all those complaints and let's build a business around that. And we are still in such an evolution. We started branding probably 2 years ago, worked with a graphic designer and started creating our materials to really be a brand presence. And that's Sarah Petty, 101. Her business training was huge for me. I'll never forget. She's like, listen, you can go to Target and buy a $25 purse, or you can buy the Gucci handbag. What's the difference? Why? Why did someone spend $600 on this one and $25 on this one? And that stuck with me. So one thing I really underestimated, I think, when I started, was the experience that we were going to give people. So I remember years before I had the business, I went to do a friend's, just some portrait work at their house for them for Christmas. And I was really starting to get the grasp of the technical end of photography and lighting and just working on it. And I told her after the fact, I wish I could have just not talked to you guys and told everybody, shut up, I need to think, because I'm trying to figure all this out in my head. But what's most important is that I engage the client to get these beautiful natural reactions.
Right, exactly.
So in my brain, I have all the stress to try to do that. And so the great thing is, as I've gotten further along, the technical is second nature now.
It has to be, right? Totally.
Most often is. So
I tell the story. When I was a bar manager, I would only hire people. Said, hey, should I go to like the school of bartending? I was like, sure, whatever. I know that's not going to teach you how to bartend, but what it's going to do is it's going to let you focus on bartending, like actually interacting with people, and not have to think about what goes in a drink.
Yeah,
you've got to make a drink. Like, you've got to be able to take a picture without fidgeting, without worrying about your camera, and that takes time to get to that level of confidence. But once you're there, then that's what, like you just said, like evoking and connecting with your clients. That's when you get those amazing shots, when the camera is just an extension of who you are, an extension of your eye.
Well, years ago, a photographer friend of mine who I respected a lot said, this was probably 10 years ago, said, we were just, and I loved it for years, but I was in auto, and I had young, again, I had newborns and a 1.5-year-old, so 3 boys. I couldn't, that then was not the phase of life to learn the technical end of photography. I would have missed everything. Yeah. And he kept saying, you got to get out of auto, get into manual, get into manual. I kept saying, I'm going to miss stuff. Then one day he said, Jennifer, you have an amazing eye for these photos. Your technical end sucks. You have got to get out of auto. And I walked away a little bit like, I'm so sad. Like, I thought my pictures were great. Now I look back, he's dead on. He was so right. It always stuck with me, though. And I said, he understood what I did not at the time. And now I get it. But sometimes it's like those little comments that it sticks with you, and you say, what happened is I knew what I wanted to produce and I wasn't able to. That's what propelled me. That and that comment propelled me to say, total kind of liberal arts person, to sit and read manuals on the beach.
Yeah.
Whenever people are like, wait, how do you do it? I'm like, you can do the same thing I did. Sit and read your manual on the beach 3 times and figure it out.
Shoot in practice. Yep. Oh, it's so great. And it's so rewarding that moment when things start to come together, where you see an image you're trying to create, and then all of a sudden you're in the editing, like, wow, that's exactly what I was trying to create. It's so rewarding. At first, and
even better is when it's on the back of the camera already, where you're like, and then I show them, like, here it is, it's done.
It's done. Yeah, and you take less shots because you got the shot, and it saves all this time in the back end. Oh, we could go in so many directions. Okay, last question on the business side. Okay. Do you have a story when you felt like, yep, okay, this is right, where you had your first big sale, where you had switched your pricing and you delivered an amazing experience, and then you looked back at your sales and your revenue, was like, okay, this is actually something that'll sustain itself? I had one of my largest, probably actually my largest sale ever in my first year, and it just happened to be that's how that client rolled. Yeah. So
they invested really heavily in their walls. They didn't care about digital. They wanted walls, and we just did a ton of stuff in their house. But what I noticed, the difference with when my prices shifted, where I started to get more confidence with it, well, one is, you know, I would try to kind of communicate subtly to my client. This is just a small part of our equation, our time here. Like, you'll see there's going to be a lot of steps and behind the scenes of things that I'm doing for you to, and a lot of them would start to get that and understand what was going on in the background. So it wasn't like, well, why am I buying $500 at the table for, you know, that began to get less as the key was really is who is your client. You have to decide who your client is. That being said, you can't necessarily decide that by like what their socioeconomic background is, because for sure I have people who come in who, you know, are humbler backgrounds and who invest really well. For a lot of reasons, they'll say like, I've never felt beautiful in a portrait till these. And so then they want that record. And then there's other people, you know, who it can go the exact opposite, who are going to nickel and dime the whole, nickel and dime the whole process when they're talking about their
That's a really smart awareness.
That year,
just because they have money doesn't mean they want to spend it.
Yes,
And the same thing's true.
A wise person, you know.
Yeah,
exactly. A wise steward of it.
But. Like people will spend on things that are important to them. Like they'll find a way to come up. If there's something that's important, something that they value, they'll invest in it. So let's take
the key. What you said there is that the ideal client is the person who has a high value for a custom portrait experience. So if they have a high value for that, what I found is that as I started modifying my prices and bumping up all my costs, that the sales process actually got easier, because it was people who understood it was going to, they weren't going to get out of there for under $1,000 or, you know, and it's all based, again, I'm low volume, so I need my sales to be higher to float this business model. But the sales sessions, I started walking out of them like, that was a lot of, like, I was joyful. It was an enjoyable experience because they're loving it. They can get what they want, or maybe they financed it, but they weren't like leaving crushed, and then me feeling really guilty, like I'm holding this thing that you really want.
I had a feeling that that's where the answer you were going to give. I've heard this story so many times. I love this. Like, it's so we fight ourselves to get to this point of raising our prices and building our confidence. But once we do, everybody says it gets easier. We always think it's going to like get mad and walk out, and nobody would ever pay that much money. And it's almost always the reverse, where you it doesn't. It's not like it. The takeaway is not that all you have to do is raise your prices. That's not it. There's a lot of work you did investing in yourself and in your business to deliver that value, and then find with very focused efforts the right client that's going to value your work. And then
that's probably the hardest part.
And then it's easy. So let's move into this great story that I've been waiting to share. And it's all about marketing, and marketing in such a way that you're attracting your ideal client, right? By telling this amazing story with video, and then paid advertising. You've done so many innovative things. Let's start at the beginning. So you came up with this idea or this concept of creating this experience. And how'd you come up with the name?
Well, and you know, so a couple of years ago, a friend of mine said, Jennifer, because I've been a writer for a long time in my life, just personally, and she said, who knew God would take a writer and turn her into a photographer? And I said, Susan, it's the same thing. Like, I'm telling stories, that's all. And I want my portrait work, I always say, to be a launch pad for your stories to be told. So when you're sitting around that table and you point to those things on the wall, I want you to talk about your experience, because you talk to me about it, and I hear about it from your friends that you're talking about it. Because I'll tell them all the time out in the field, I'm like, I'm totally in the zone. You got to tell me if something dangerous is about to happen or whatever. Or that horse is going to trample me while I'm laying in the ring or whatever. Like, make me aware. So
that's so cool.
So what has happened is, over the years, kind of my blog, definitely, we blog a lot of our clients. The blog built a following that I didn't even realize was happening in our area. People who were like, because of my desire to write, I guess I kind of naturally married those up with the business. Not that it's, you know, for most clients will have a little, you know, a little reflection. But there's always clients every year, a bunch who were telling like a significant life story of something going on for them. And when you don't have someone in your family who's a writer or who's like a historian, that's gold to them. That someone stepped in and reflected on my life. So what I started to hear from women when we would cover sometimes these significant things in their life, or even just regular family portraits, they would say, Jennifer, no one has ever photographed me this beautifully before. Like, I've always hated photos of myself. And like, I love this. Thank you. Thank you. So they started to then hire me for independent work, mostly boudoir. And then what was happening is the boudoir, they couldn't share it. They would share it with their girlfriends, but they were like, I wish I had something that I could share. And so we said, well, okay. And it just kind of started saying, well, you know what, come in a beautiful dress. Yeah. Come in a beautiful dress. We'll start with that, so you'll have that to share, and then we'll do your boudoir portraits.
Right.
And then we started saying, I have a good friend, Jill, who is our hair and makeup stylist, who has just been so gifted her whole life at doing hair and makeup for people. And what I noticed is that my women, when they were running around town to get their hair and makeup done, always coming late, which I was fine with that. That wasn't a big deal, but I saw they were harried coming in the door, and I didn't like that. I wanted them to have this like restful day, because I knew how much they loved the experience, but it was starting frantic.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what if we had you like do hair and makeup at the studio?
Yeah.
For them, which the studio, by the way, is in my home. It wasn't. We built a house a year ago that we built space into the home for the studio.
Good for you.
So we have a styling center back there as well and all. So she would come and do their hair and makeup. So we would tell them, roll out of bed and come on by. So it was awesome. They loved it. Then the next phase was when we moved into here, we have like all this designated real space for it. So we have a designated studio that's not a converted living room, dining room. So it's a private studio space on the back of the house, the styling center. So they come, and it really is a princess day for them. And over and over, I just say, like, it's one day.
Yeah.
It's one day that you are at the top of the to-do list.
Yep.
Because your to-do list is ginormous every day. And most of these women are giving so much to so many people in their lives. They're splintered off, and they're running around feeling ragged. Even when they come for something like family portraits, which family portraits are stressful on moms.
Oh, totally.
To be very frank.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
I take a lot of the stress off as soon as they start, but once they're, or in the process, they're closed, and are the kids going to be a disaster? And Jennifer's families always look so happy. What if my kids are horrible? And I try to put all that at ease for them, but I know what they're experiencing. So this is a day where they don't have to cajole anyone or convince or get anyone else ready, even themselves. Yep. And we just said, when I started doing this, and it was probably about 2 years ago, and I would have conversations because women would ask a lot about, what are you doing? And I see these beautiful portraits, and I said, I love it. Because, once you have that like artist fire in your soul that you want to create something new and unique and beautiful. Yep. When you're with a lot of portrait sessions, you're trying to bring people on board a lot of times, right? Like, I'm trying to convince dad and the kids often that this is something that, and they come around, but there's a lot of convincing. But when you get someone who is just like, make portraits with me, you're like putty in her hands, right? So I said, what I saw happen is they would come really nervous. Like, Jennifer, and they would say this, everyone looks so beautiful, but what if I don't?
Yeah, totally.
I said, that is on me. You leave that to me, because I am going to, between me and Jill's going to do your hair and makeup. You're going to be grinning ear to ear when you see it. Yep. And then I think why often people don't love their portraits is because the photographer did not connect with them.
Right.
So they felt stiff and awkward, and they looked stiff and awkward. And versus when you connect with someone and you can show that, you'll see in the video, I turn the camera around all the time in the session. I'm like, take a look at yourself. Here, look at you. You look amazing. And they're like, oh my God.
That's me?
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't want you to think this was done later in Photoshop. I want you to know that when you are properly lit, and beautifully styled and posed and all this, that look at the beautiful you.
That is such a good way. That's a good strategy to use that the back of the camera as a tool that way to
Yeah.
continue
So I think
to.
a lot of people hide from it because they're like, oh, I don't want them to see. I don't want them to
I
see.
want to surprise them, or like no, like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just gonna further you. It reminds me of like of a gardening analogy. Like you are just tilling the soil, like from the very moment of the experience they come
Yep.
in, and it's about letting them fall into and settle into their truest self, so that they can actually get photographed and create that amazing picture with you.
Yeah.
If they're hurried, if they're stressed, it's not going to happen. And
Yeah.
each step you're taking along the way is just as like nurturing them into settling into this perfect photograph. It's so
It
cool.
absolutely is. And I said, what I realized is, as I was describing it to people, probably, I don't know, like a year ago, I said, if you could see what happens to these women when they can relax and settle,
Yep.
and then when I start to work with them and I show them, like, look, and the confidence that then they get, these women who told me that they never photograph well, they always
Yep.
hide from the camera and all this. If you could see that moment, I said, it's like this veil is dropping, and then all of a sudden these like guards are down, they relax, this beauty is shining through. It's like, and I said, it's like they're having their Cinderella moment. And I said, it's like we've unveiled their Cinderella. And I looked at the girl who I was talking to and I said, wait, unveil your Cinderella? Like, somebody has to have used that already. That has to be taken. Because that's really good. And I went home and I'm like Googling around, like, unveil your Cinderella. No. Unveil your, and I was like, don't type it too many times, maybe it'll get hits or whatever. And so I was like, I need to look at this. And we said, if we're going to be serious about making this, because we knew we loved it, let's make it a brand.
Yeah.
Then let's get it trademarked. So we did. That was like 6 to 8 month process. We had to partner up. There's a lot of stuff with that people can look into if they have any interest. But
Yep.
it was, what we were concerned about was, we would start this really cool idea, and then we knew all that it took to pamper and create this day. And then someone would try to rip it off and take the name and do like a cheap version of it, and it would end up like the 80s and 90s mall
Yeah.
glamour shots.
Totally.
You know?
Oh, yep.
So,
It's so smart. You've got to protect your brand that way. Good for
Yeah.
you. Okay, so this is just, I love that backstory. So now it's an evolution of what you're doing. And so to get down to some of the specifics, are you now doing the Cinderella shoots separate from boudoir? Or are they all does it start with the dress and the fancy dress and the makeover, and then most of them also do boudoir, or is it instead of?
yeah. So this is what I always tell my clients. This is the glory of it, because we are custom portrait. We offer custom portrait services. So there's 2 hours in front of the lens, basically. Yep. We craft that uniquely to each client. For most clients, it's a combination that they start with a Cinderella look,
Yep.
and then they evolve into boudoir.
Yep.
And then there are some clients, though, who say, I want all Cinderella, and some who say, I want all boudoir. Clients who come back and then say, now this time I want to do, a different version, or, or I have there's so many clients who are like, oh, I'm coming back again. Like, I have so many ideas I want to use with you, and I want to see what you create.
Yep.
And so most often it is a combination.
Cool.
But it was something that people couldn't wrap their brain around, because they were like, what? Why is she going to get these fancy portraits of herself?
Yep.
So we said, we have to help people understand, and the best way to do that was
tell
video.
the story. Like, you gave them this wonderful mechanism to talk about it.
Oh,
without
yeah.
any embarrassment, just to brag, to like, yeah, I want to unveil my Cinderella. Like, everywhere they go, they get to talk about it.
Yeah.
And whether, if they did some more risky boudoir shots, nobody needs to know that.
Yeah.
That's just between you and their close friends. But by wrapping it, it reminds me of, what was that movie, Sideways, when Pinot Noir blew up? So everybody was just like, would order Merlot. Again, I'm using all these bar analogies. Sorry. So when people would order wine, what we learned so often is they were just afraid to say it wrong. They didn't know what they didn't know. And so they're just give me a red. Just give me a Merlot. And then Pinot Noir was like a thing. And it was fun to say. And it was safer to say. Like, oh, I know what a Pinot Noir. It's really, I'll say that. And Pinot Noir sales exploded. And what people don't realize at that time is not only did Pinot Noir sales explode, all red wine sales took a huge jump, because they made it safer for people to start talking about it. And they weren't embarrassed to place an order. You've taken the wonderful explosion of boudoir. I think all of these things are still true in both. Like, it's this great opportunity for women to feel beautiful in a way they never have felt before, right? It's this amazing gift we can give our clients. But for a lot of people in different areas of the country, there's that social hurdle where like, I can't tell anybody, or I can only tell certain people. What are people going to think? And you've made it so so easy. There's just this gentle way for them to tell everybody they know about it and take pride in them and treating themselves this way. It's just genius.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Cool.
You know what you say about with the wine example, it's why we created our own website, part of why we created our own website for Unveil Your Cinderella, because we said Jennifer DiDio is too hard to say. People don't know how to say DiDio, right? And they also don't know how to spell it. So jenniferdidio.com is kind of a challenge. So we said, we also, because I shoot all those other things, I didn't want it to be distracting.
Yeah.
I wanted, when they came, I wanted this site to be all about showing women their own beautiful.
Right.
So we launched the website literally probably a week and a half before we launched the video. We pulled it together just amazingly fast.
So so this is the one project is just Unveil Your Cinderella. Had you used video to market other parts of your business yet, or is this also?
No. Okay, so this video is brand new.
Yep. So you decided, you know what, we're going to go all out. We're going to create a video and brand it, all of this. So you hired a videographer. What were the advice you can give people to finding a videographer that helps with this?
You need a good studio manager who does her homework. So Sarah, my studio manager, who's just phenomenal, said she started doing research in the area for a videographer. And there's not a lot of people who shoot stuff like this. So we went with AP Media, and Lee Emmons is who did our video, and he did a phenomenal job for us. He was so responsive to what our needs were. And we knew that the video was a thing that would get people behind understanding what we were doing and help them to see the whys. And we felt like when they saw it, that it would, well, first of all, it created a lot of buzz for us. A kind of branding thing is initially we were calling this our couture line.
Okay.
Couture has gotten a lot of play in a lot of things because but the problem was people didn't know how to say it and they didn't know what it was.
Right.
And I was like, it's not working if we have to keep explaining what couture portraiture is to these people. But it's also because we didn't have a fully identified brand. You would go to my site and see that I shot all these other things too. So we said, in retrospect, if we had a whole site devoted to it, it would be a little easier like we do now. But I said, you know what? Make it super easy. Yeah. The only thing you struggle with when you're like unveilyourcinderella.com, you would struggle with maybe how to spell unveil. I or E, E or I. But, all come up. So, and because we had trademarked and all. So we said, let's try to make this easier. And, so Sarah is good at that. Like what she'll say, let's just try to make it stupid easy. So when people go to try to find us, they see find the website right away. And with finding the video guide, we both knew it was a gamble going with AP Media. We didn't know. We knew that they did a lot of work with cars. Go figure, right? They did a lot of car shows in Vegas, stuff like that. But we showed him a sample. I mean, Sue Bryce is all about make a video. Why are you guys not making videos? We're like, help us. Like, this is what we're trying to do. He said he was willing to, he could do it. He could work with it. I told him I know nothing about videography. I do know about photography though, and I do know about lighting. And so some things that we liked that he did, like the light leaks. I love the light leaks. It feels for a woman, it feels cool. It feels cool the way this like ethereal feel we've created for the video. And he was super responsive with all that.
Was there a lot of time talking about up front? Did you guys sit down and because you had how many models did you have for the shoot?
Oh, just one. Just
one. That's right. So you was it tricky to enroll that model for the video?
No. So when we got our model, what we did is she expressed interest in a session. Because initially, at first we were like, should we just go get a model? Then we're like, no, why don't we use a client? See if a client wants to do it. Why? Right?
Yeah.
So we said, let's talk with a client. She was interested. And so we sat down. We talked about a lot of the logistics because we were like, look, this is what we're trying to go for with the field. Becky was awesome. And I said, Becky, one thing I need you to understand kind of going into this is that my clients they joke with me a lot because our blog presence is active. There's a blog every week up. So there's a lot, within the community, it's fairly well known. So I said they'll joke with me and they'll say like, I feel like a movie star. I was like, a Westminster movie star. Like, it's our small town or whatever, but we are like a Westminster movie star. So they like it. It's fun. They're like, I showed up at the pool and everybody was like, your pictures, I saw the blog, screaming at them across the pool and that kind of stuff. So there's a fanfare with it that they love. Yeah. So I said, Becky, I want you to know that that's what happens for some people. Are you comfortable with that? Because it's likely going to be greater for a video. It has potential to be spread a lot more. Yeah. I don't know what it's going to be, but just, you're going to get stopped and people are going to be like, wait, you're the girl who, are you that Cinderella girl from those pictures of her? So are you okay with that? She's like, yeah, she's so cool. She's like embraced the experience the whole time and was just awesome to work with. So definitely has a great sense of adventure about her. So we prepared her in that way, and we just said,
I think it's so smart to use an actual client too, because you could have gotten a model, but then as soon as you create, like what like society would deem as a model type, right? But then you create a barrier where people don't. They're like, I don't see myself as that person. But you took somebody in your target market, made them look amazing, and they're like, oh, maybe I could do that. Like again, you made it so simple and welcoming.
Yeah, and that's part of like kind of figuring out who your client is, and I know who my client is. My client is not a 22-year-old model. You know what I mean? She's not. Now her mom might be buying it, like may have hired me for senior portraits 2-3 years earlier or whatever for her senior year, but she's not my client who comes and invests is generally, she's like a 40-year-old woman. Yeah. And so she needed to see, who's professional often. So I needed my model to be someone who people would look at. And like I say, who's the Cinderella client? She's the one who's sitting across from you at the board table at the meeting. She's the one who's across from you at the soccer field. Yep. She's the one who is always shy. She's not gotten out of yoga pants and a ponytail in the last 3 years. But remembers that she used to get dolled up and kind of misses that sometimes. And so, that one of the clients who just came yesterday for a pre-consult meeting said, I'm 30 now, and I just realized I went back through my photos and I'm behind the camera for every single one of them, almost, and there's way more of the dog than there is of me, and I want my kids, like I have some beautiful portraits of my mom when she was my age, and I want my kids to have something like that one day because they're precious to her. And and not to be like a Debbie Downer with this, but I mean, why do we do this, right? It's for legacy value, and that's what she kept echoing back was the legacy value of the portraits. And I just thought, gosh, you wouldn't want to know like something was happening to you, which unfortunately I walked through with several of my clients, and not feel like I have something I'm happy that my kids have of me. Right.
It's so important. I mean, if you're in the business of just taking pictures, that's gone. Everybody can take pictures. Yep. But you've taken this idea of creating an experience and offering experience to the total other end of the spectrum. And it's this amazing experience they get to partake in, and then they have actual physical like heirloom quality things they can take on, not just for them for years to come, but for their family. Yeah. It's just tremendous. So back up to the video. So you go through the process. I like kind of those reveal moments where you got to sit down and watch the video for the first time when it was like good. Like, what was that like? We're like, oh my God, this is going to be really
going to work. She did it. Yeah. Everything looks great. And I mean, there was definitely it's like anything. There was some fine tuning that happened for, I don't know, like a week or two where we were like, hey, can we see a little bit more of this? And, but largely we knew as soon as we saw it, we were so thrilled. Yeah. It really was. And
so you decided, like even though you knew you had something special, you decided to also combine it with some great extra gas and target it on Facebook. So did you just let it go by itself, or did you start paying to promote it right away?
No. So I noticed a couple of years ago that Facebook, like some things were changing. And then I read a blog and I'm going to forget his name right now. It's the big guy in New Jersey. Anyway, I read a blog post where he said that Facebook was being pretty upfront about the fact that because it was public, that if you were a business and you were not paying to promote your stuff, you were going to get shoved out of feed very intentionally. Yep. So, you know, we're trying to step around a lot of things with that. Oh, Neil Van Niekerk, that's the guy from Jersey. Not originally Jersey, he's originally British, I think. But anyway, and I was like, oh gosh, you know, this is why some of this stuff is sitting.
Right.
So, you know, the rules are constantly changing with Facebook, but for sure, one of the things that's happening is because it's a public entity, if you do not pay to promote something, it will not be seen. Now, what's really fascinating though is that with this video, you know, if you tag a lot of people, you do definitely get some play. It'll have a pretty good representative sampling there. But it's a representative sampling of people who were already familiar with my business. That was the problem. You get some new trickle in, but not enough. So we first started by loading the video. My media, the AP Media, Lee Emmons, had loaded it up to my website and YouTube. Or he put it on YouTube, sorry, and then my studio manager put it on my website. And so I loaded a link from my website onto my business page and my personal page. About 1,000 people went to see it in that first 2 days, which I thought was great. And then my media guy was like, that's great, but if you really want to get a scene, put it as a direct video right on Facebook. I really encourage you to do that and put a chunk of budget behind it. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. Okay, fine. So we do.
Let's slow down. So with those first couple thousand views, any inquiries yet?
That was in that first day and a half, I guess it was. I don't remember. I wish. Yeah, my studio manager sitting there shaking her head. Yeah, we did have inquiries.
Okay, cool. So that's promising. So then you get look if we.
And I knew it was getting seen, and people were messaging us. They were like, "Whoa, whoa, oh my gosh, I love it!" And
that's so cool.
People were like, "I want to be your next model," and all this. Great. Clients who were saying it, by the way, clients were like, "I'll do that.
I want to do that again." Yeah, absolutely. So
and cool. So I said, okay, so we started it up on a Wednesday or Thursday, something like that. And we figured we would run it for 5 days probably. Thank you, Jesus. I paid per days and not per view. Because what we realized is first when it started going through, as it was, I could see people were sharing it like crazy. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And people, it got to be it was a management. We know now next time we do something like this, so we'll run it probably at Mother's Day. We'll be better prepared. We'll have a spreadsheet in place and to track everything and all. We just didn't think about that. I thought, a couple thousand people will see it, but whatever, 25 will inquire. And that was not the case at all. So
I'm going to interject with for your studio manager, if she doesn't use it yet already, I love this new online form tool. It's called Type Form, just like it sounds, tight, like the word type form.
Okay.
Beautiful online forms. So when you're doing a promotion like this where you're going to get a lot of interest, it's so how do I say this? If your goal is to get a ton of people just emails, right? As soon as you add steps and hoops for people to jump through, you significantly impact how many leads or how many emails you get. If you've got to add their address, phone number, every time you add a field, it decreases what we would call a conversion rate.
Okay.
But if you're going to have a lot, and you are going to, just from the experience of doing it, that let's say if you just had email, you get 1,000 people or 500 people. That's too many people to call. That's too many people to so you start adding these tiny little hurdles, just ask questions about why they're interested, or link to their social media, something like that, so that they do the research for you, and then you've got this really cool spreadsheet that you can use to do your follow-ups. Anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great.
It's a cool way to capture interest in a promotion like this.
Okay.
And then in a way that saves you time.
That's great. Yeah, time savers are always huge.
All right, cool. So, so then you decide the other distinction here, your lesson learned, is you promoted it. You just set a budget per each day.
No, so I think I gave it a budget. I think when I started with a $250 budget. Maybe, I don't know if it was 3 or 5 days. I'd have to look back.
Okay.
But what I found happening, so it started being shared around a lot. And I was, I'm looking at Sarah saying, Sarah, this is like our rate of view is like 1 out of 3 people is clicking on our video. 1 out of 3, that is phenomenal. Like
That's
I've
huge.
never had that rate on stuff when I've gone through. Like I'm not clicking on 1 out of 3 ads going through my Facebook feed, and
Yep.
wow, that's incredible. So then a couple of days are going along, and friends are sending us texts like, "What are you doing? It's 9,000 views. Are you taking over the world?" Like just joking with us, good girlfriend talk,
Yep.
and we're like, "Whoa, this is crazy! 9,000, what the heck?" And then like a day later, it's doubled, and we're like, "What?" So inquiries are coming in, and we're not, because it isn't like we're pricey. I get that we're pricey. We're an investment, so there are a lot of people who are saving for this. We booked a lot of jobs too from this, which has been great.
Yep.
But what we noticed is that, so I increased the time, because the leads that we were getting leads that we're booking, and
Right.
leads that were saying, "I love this. I'm saving. You're going to see me in a year." And I know like this, a lot of families don't have that as disposable income to just walk in and do it.
So you did the post. So you uploaded the video. You uploaded the video into Facebook. That's
Yes,
tip number
correct.
one. Then
Yes.
you scheduled it. When you ran the 3-day, or then set your budget.
Mm-hmm.
Were you also able to target the region and the area
Yes.
right
Yes.
from within just a promoted post?
Yeah, so, and I had never done that before, but again, my media guy was saying you target your demographic, and,
Yep.
and I was like, okay. So I said, for me, it was like, I either did 30 to 50 or 30 to 55-year-old woman
Yep.
in Maryland, who was interested in photography and glamour and fashion, makeovers, things like that.
Right.
And my gosh, I mean,
And all of those things you do, that's an important distinction. Like all of those little filters, it still give you like a prediction of how big that audience size is? I don't know if
it does, yes.
So,
it says like, here's potential, and of course what it's wanting the whole time is you to put more budget behind it, more budget, and I was like, all right, we have to decide how much budget I'm putting into this.
but you
that's why I
did it
kept adding. I felt like I was at the slots table, like, put more money on, you know?
What you did so well is you tested it first, right? So the first test was with no money, and you got conversion. You got people to call. That's the goal. All right. So let's put a little bit of money behind it and see what happens. Oh wow, we put 250 in, and we get 10 leads out, or 10 bookings out. Let's try it again, and you just let's tweak this and try that without having to take the enormous risk of like a big print ad somewhere that's permanent that you can't change or tweak.
Yeah, and I guess you can pay per click, and that's why I said like, thank God we didn't, because so we ended up running it for a week and a half. And so it's done now, and it's still sitting as the pinned top story on my Facebook business page.
Yep.
But as it progressed along, we went from 1 out of 3 was clicking on it to 1 out of 2 to like a 66% click rate. Yeah. So it was over 50,000 views, and it went before like 74,000 people, something like that. We're blown away. I mean, we're still sitting here a little bit of shock as we all look at one another, and my studio manager works across the hall from me in my husband's office, and I'm like, there's another, like, we got another one, yay! Like, it's somebody, they're embracing it, they're loving it, and we're hearing people say stuff like, she's watching it every day. She's watching that video, and she's like a little girl, and I'm like, oh.
That is so special. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's been a long time, a lot of hard work you invested into this, and some risks you took along the way, and I'm so happy that it paid off. Like, it's such a powerful lesson for everybody on the call too. Yeah. This is huge. So we're obviously embedding the video in this post, so you guys can check it out, and we'll put a link to the full page so people can look at it. And I encourage you guys to get creative and think of how you can create something like this that has your own individual flavor to it. It's such a great gift you're giving to your clients. So, man, this is fun. I didn't sleep very well last night. I was like, oh, I've got to do an interview, and I tell you, this is like drinking 5 glasses of coffee. This is a really fun conversation.
It's great.
I love hearing stories of people with this gumption and hustle, and it's been a joy talking with you. So thank you so much.
Well, we love using our sticky albums too. So we give those to, I give those to every client pretty much. So
that's tremendous.
Just about every client who's with me at least purchases the digital collection.
Yep.
It's kind of an entry point for me, because they can't walk away from these beautiful galleries without having everything. So,
and it bridges that gap where they have to wait for their prints so well, right? where
Yeah.
they've got something on their phone they can go brag about and show people
Yeah.
right away. And I think I like the idea you shared in the pre-call is for your boudoir clients, you create one album that's for like private people with a password, and then you
Yeah.
create another album that's
Yeah.
something they can share more openly. It's a really smart way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
Well,
but they love them and they share them around, and you can see all the feedback. You can see all the,
all the
I can see the
stats.
numbers on there to
Yep.
see. So
That's huge.
yeah,
And now
thank
that
you. We love it.
I wonder if you've thought about, because if you could consider adding video, because if people see that, right, they see the video, you can maybe think about adding that as a premium where it wouldn't take, maybe with even if you just started with like Animoto or something like that, where it's just a little bit of video here and there with short snippets that you intersect with some images, and then you can embed Animoto and or just YouTube video into a sticky album. That would be pretty.
I've thought about what it's kind of on the next year ahead. That,
totally.
Because my studio manager gaffers often for me, so I'm like, if you can start using your iPhone to do little clippets, because really we don't even need their vocals. We don't need audio. We just need little clippets of like snippets. of the children running to the mom.
Genius.
You know, one of my moms said, my first client said, because we have a little bitty movie we give them that we just create, and of their portraits set to music, and she said, my kids walked in and said, you listening to that again? She said, I have to watch the movie on mute now because they keep mocking me. I'm like, perfect.
That's so great. Oh yeah, it's a powerful add-on, and people, again, when you're building this experience, it lets people relive it when you set it to music.
Yeah.
And what I also want to give credit to you instead of cheaping out or stealing audio, you invested in a wonderful song also, and the song with the video with the stills.
Isn't that
makes
great?
Such an amazing combination, and kudos for you to just knowing that up front and investing, because that's a big chunk of your investment was just getting the rights to that song.
Well, I mean, it's pretty reasonable through Triple Scoop, I feel like, to be able to do that for something like that I knew for sure was going to have public promotion. But here's a little caveat about that that I didn't know. So when our video, I guess my media guy loaded it up into YouTube in the middle of or really late, and then was telling us the next morning, but it got flagged. Yes. He had to be up at like 4 in the morning, and it got flagged. So I guess you know about this. So it gets flagged for dispute because they see it's getting traffic coming to it, and I've used I guess, popular song. I don't know if it's popular or not, but I love it. Anyway, so he says, so then they start running these ads along the bottom of it, and so he sends right away, I'd already given him my licensing number for the song, and he sends that into them. So they lift the dispute pretty quickly, which was great. Well, a couple days go by, then I'm like, what's going on? Why? Meanwhile, we're trying to field all these messages coming in. But there's banner ads again. Oh, and hello, there are other photographers. It's banner ads on my ad. I'm like, son of a... So my husband is like, I'm not going to say the business name because it's probably not even them that decided it. Anyway, this business name the other photography business is up there and he clicks on it to check it out, and it locks up his computer. I'm like, great. So this is the experience people are getting. So I send my media guy, what's going on? He's like, it's not monetized. It shouldn't be doing that.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, because if anybody's making money, it's supposed to be us on this ad by letting people run ads on our movie. Right. So he checks into it. It was because the Spanish version of the song had filed a case against us. Great. I was like, what's next? The Polish version? The Aramaic? It's going to be no end to the languages that are going to say they have rights. So it was resolved. I think that one took like 2 days. And my media guy was like, it's ridiculous, but anyone can file a claim at any time. And then they start running these ads. So I have some theories behind that.
I bet you do. Yeah, that's interesting. Good to know. One thing to know, I would recommend next time. So there's always trade-offs, right? Like YouTube is the #2 biggest search engine out there, right? So it's really good to get SEO on YouTube. So there's some advantages there, but you always have to balance the trade-off of there's going to be ads and having to go through all this hassle. I like using Wistia for a lot of my business hosting videos, because a couple things you can do. One is you own it all. It looks gorgeous player. You can embed it anywhere. There's no pre-roll. There's nothing comes up after. And then you can add call to actions. You could add links and overlays at any time in the video, and you could end the video with an email form.
Oh, that's nice.
Right at the end. So like, interested to learn more, get on our newsletter or whatever you want to do, right?
Okay.
So Wistia is pretty cool. It's kind of like Vimeo in a similar respect, but you get a couple more additional features. Oh, this is so fun. Okay. I think that's it for my questions. I've got to let you run. This is such an exciting episode. Thank you so much for
thanks
sharing.
for having me. It was a lot of fun talking to you about it. Thanks for celebrating it with us.